next week. I believe it's next week. Yep. So let's see. You know, like going through like the what you call it. I'm going to go through like the topics of your lesson plan that I sent you. Let's see. Specifically, I will sort of like go through key topics that I believe will be highlighted in the examination. All right. Also, before we start, how's you guys' animations? Any questions? Any problems? Besides the fact that sometimes your Maya freezes up and you have to delete it from your computer, and you can't work on it, so you have to steal your brother's laptop to work on it. Any case, apart from hardware issues, are there any sort of technical issues when doing your animations? Anything you'd like clarified, or any problems you come across? Nothing? Right. Okay, in that case we'll begin with today's session. All right. Okay. So, your exam next week, I shouldn't worry too much as long as you know how to write as long as you know how to write, and as long as you know how to read, I think you'll be fine. If you remember the last time I brought up a sample test paper, right? You just follow the instructions, closely. You guys shouldn't have any issues with the exams with that regards. Okay, I believe Leah and Zima, right? Yeah, I forgot to take in your attendance, you guys. I believe you two attended last Saturday's extra class, so you do have a slight advantage in that you kind of know this, right? I'll sort of go through this again so you have a firmer retention of information, if you like. But that said, feel free to work on your animations as you listen to me drone on and on. 64. Oh, and if you worry about the sounds next door, I think when I walked past them, they were playing Guild Wars 2. So yeah, having a lot of fun. Right, sessions. Okay, so today's class. Do you suppose I scared off Kaza? When he came in, it was like, oh yeah, I'm doing this revision for test. Test, never again disappear. Most likely, I suppose.
It seems like he has so much stuff in you.
Yeah, it sounds like you guys are like perpetually busy. But in what sense are you busy? I'm just curious, like what you guys have to do. For you guys? Oh, okay.
Because our modules are done.
Oh, that's nice. After your exams in a couple weeks for your UBD, was it? No, yeah, you guys in your prep period right now. So after your exams in a couple weeks, you guys are free.
3 months.
Well, that's nice.
Actually, yesterday was my last day.
Oh, you don't have exams?
No.
I can hear the MV from the two in front.
We used to know because some of our modules have
instead of a written exam, it's more like your continuous assessment. Is that it? And that's quite nice. That really is quite nice.
Right.
And for those of you listening, expecting sort of like a lesson right now, apologies, I've been droning on, talking to the people in the mic right now. Yeah, I should really get on. Discuss this later on afterwards. Any case, right, let's begin. So I believe I went through the whole concept of shortcuts on Saturday. For Diana's and whoever's listening's benefit, I will go through again. The whole concept of shortcuts in Maya is just there to make the workflow faster. Now, you've been using all these buttons here, right? Sort of like all these buttons up here to do all the various sort of like tools. You've been using the drop-down menus, and possibly you've been utilizing all these icons in the shelf here. Now these are these are of course alternatives to how you can do the various tools. For example, extrude, you can either extrude using through the edit mesh drop down menu, or you can extrude here. But right now let's focus on shortcuts. So Maya, there's several different types of shortcuts. First, there are numerical shortcuts. Numbers 1, 2 and 3 up to I believe 7 will have different effects on your viewpoint here. So let's go with 1, would not have any effect. 2, you will see from this wireframe, this thing appear here. This is the smooth model. Well, and if I press 3, this is the smooth model. Right now you won't see much of what you normally recognize. So let's press 4. Well, 4 is wireframe display. Press 5 to display objects in shader mode. That's 5. 5 will bring up the shader mode, which is in your case. You remember most of the time you'd be pressing these two. 6, I believe, would be this one. Yes. So that's some of the shortcuts. 4, 5, 6 will give you this. All right. And 1, 2, 3 will give you this, depending on what you want. 1 is basically the default mode of the object. 2 gives you the smooth model of the object plus the wireframe of the original, and 3 is the preview smooth for the object itself. All right. 4 again is the wireframe. 5 is shaded mode. 6 is to activate the texture maps. All right. 7 gives us this mode where the viewpoint renderer will show light. Will show rendered light through created light nodes. Right now there's no lights in the scene, therefore the object is unlit. Now we create light, perhaps through the shortcut menu by holding down space, clicking that, and going down to light. Let's create a point light. Now let's drag it out. Now you can see the effect that having a light will have in the scene when you have 7 clicked on, switched on. You have 5 will use the default lights in scene. 7 will use this light to render out effectively the effects of the light itself. Okay. Other shortcuts besides the numerical 1 to 7 would be alphabetical shortcuts. For example, F will focus on the object so that your camera would go about the object. Like if I focus on this light bulb instead, right now the camera rotates around this square. If I press F, right now the camera rotates around this light. So that's one of the numerical shortcuts. Another would be G. If I were to insert edge loop and I were to do something else, like perhaps I were to move this object. If I want to insert another edge loop, I don't have to go back up there. I can press G to repeat the last action. And the shortcut is indeed for last action use, because if I were to press this and extrude it out, pressing G again will not give me insert edge loop, but will give me an extrusion out this way. All right. Other shortcuts would also include, I believe, you can hold down D. You can hold down D to toggle the axis, the pivot point, so that you can manipulate it. Or you can press insert once to toggle it, and press insert again to return back to the normal axis mode. So for D is to hold, and for insert is to tap. And then there's of course the snap tool, the snap to tools. You have X that snaps to grid, C C that snaps to curve or edges in this case, and V that snaps to vertices like that, like so. Right. Okay, let's see. And what else? All right. Yes, I should teach you about like menu shortcuts. Menu shortcuts are, for example, when you right click on this, you get edge, object, UV, all these modes of the object. Now you can of course manually go up here to this button, select by component type, and you can say select palm point, select point components, etc. Usually we use the easier method to hold right click on an object and select all this, and we can also choose the various options available here. Mainly the material functions are quite useful. However, that said, right, if you were to press shift and hold right click on an object, you come up with a new menu that includes the split polygon tool that's not found anywhere else besides in there for some reason. And split allows you to do that. Interactive is a bit different to split, so there's that difference with that regards. 52, that's a lot. Huh. In any case, so holding down shift and right click changes the radio menu up here. Holding down control shift. Holding down control shift gives you even more options, but you don't need to worry about control shift. You can, most of the tools you end up using will be in the under shift and hold right click. So you have these shortcuts here. All right. See what else you guys need to know. You guys will have to know duplication through special duplication, which is, let's have a quick flick here. All right. Okay, there we are. All right. Say, for example, the test question asks you to duplicate this object with even spacing around a particular pivot point or around the origin, as is in this case. So, of course, we all know that to do that, we go to duplicate special. We look at the axis of rotation. It's the y-axis. We go press 90 there to give us, if the question was asking us for 3 copies of equal distances, that means there'll be 4 objects in total with an angle difference of 90 between each of them. So we just type in the necessary thing. If it's again, depending on the question, it could be copy or instance. Once you press apply, you get all these. Lovely. And of course, you know how to use the outliner. For example, if you had right now, the outliner shows 4 objects but no light. If you see this issue, if you see you have this problem in your version of Maya, to see all the objects in the scene in the outliner, you click this button here, and that brings up the entire entire objects available in the scene. So from here we can say I want to group these objects, and to group these objects we know it's Control G, or we can say create group, create empty group, and we'll put everything in the group as such. Yeah, remember in the outliner, to move stuff, you hold down the middle mouse button to do that. It's a bit counterintuitive, but yeah, it's just one of Maya's quirks, I suppose. Let's see. I'm also assuming you know the various functions in edit mesh. Let's have a quick peek here. Like under edit mesh, your various, or you could also shift right click here. You have your various tools. You got your insert edge loops, which insert edge loops, as the name suggests. And you can also edit the tool of insert edge loops using the tool settings here. So if I wanted 5 edge loops created using an equal multiplier, this allows me to create 5 edge loops with equal distances between them. Okay. Let's see. Edit mesh. From here we can cut the face using cut face tool, or more efficiently, actually, if you hold down shift and right click, we go to split. Split polygon tool gives you a quicker way to cut faces into whatever shape you want. Yeah, let's try that again. So something like that. In any case, that's split polygon tool. We also got this method of deleting edges that also deletes edge vertex. I mean, reason why we do that is because if you were to do it without using that particular function, you will leave all these vertices about, which will bring about horrible sort of like deformations to your object that you rather not have, actually, if you have a look. Right, what else? What else will you need to know? Merge, merge does this. It merges 2 vertices together and basically creates 1 vertex point from there. And this looks like an hourglass. Huh? What's missing here is obviously an edge loop here. So instead of creating an edge loop, we can use the split interactive split tool. This should help us. If we reduce snap magnets to 1, it gives us a more precise way to get that measurement done. It's rather horrible. I wonder if there's a way. Okay. That's most of the modeling tools that you come across for polygons. For curves, in curves, we like to usually go to this option of using the side mode. And in curves, when we create curves, we can snap to grid using the side option here. So very quickly creating a simple vase. We can use the control vertex to smoothen the various lines so that they're a bit nicer. Okay, that's that. Alright, so we got our curve, and things we can do with the curve, if you things we can do with the curve is, for example, if you go to surfaces, we can revolve around the surface, and we have many options here. Usually, if you create it using the front view, our axis present will be the y-axis, which is this line, this green axis here. Surface degree will be cubic, linear. All these options, if you get given instructions in the question, be sure to carefully read them and make the necessary adjustments. This is per span of number of isoparsons. They'll be under general, under quads. We'll say let's say 5 and 5. Let's go for that. So when we apply, we'll get this sort of object. And now, if we edit, once the object is created, right, it is still under control of the curve, as you can see. If we sort of move this, if we move the curve, the object gets affected. Reason being is because this is still, if you look under channel, this still has information of revolve that basically feeds the given information we have to the object. So therefore, moving this curve will result in a change in the object itself. So to ensure that this object does not get affected by this curve, we can delete by history, and any information is gone and will no longer affect the object that you have created. Another thing you can do with curves is that if you have two curves right next to each other, you can loft the two, which is similar to has a similar set of options available to it, like revolve does. So you have this lovely thing, and again, like revolve, if you take the curve and move it, the object still gets affected because it still has information that's being provided by the curves. So if you rather like the result of what you have created, you can delete by type history, and you can move it aside, and it will no longer be affected by the curves. Let's see what else you guys would like. What else guys can do with, right? Another important function of Maya is to create materials and textures that allow you to portray realistic looking objects, realistic looking interpretations of real life objects using textures. And to do so, we use UVs to help us create a nice layout so that Maya is able to read the texture. Like, alright, for example, let's create a new material of Lambert. Under Lambert, we use a color file of the UV checker. So right now we see nothing. If we press 6, we see, again, 6, all 6 does is switch this on, which is what we normally do without the shortcut. So 6 brings us this. Now, to edit the UVs, you could use these, or we could go to the UV texture editor and play around with all the various tools here, which are quite lovely. So to start with, we can select a face, right? And here we have this representation, or let's we can take away the texture background so that we can see things easier. Or if you want the texture background for reference, we can dim it so that the UV shows up better. Right. So what can we do with this UV? Well, first off, for the top face, we could convert the selection to edges. All right, and we can separate the UVs along the selected edges. So what this does, it selects the edges of the box, right? That corresponds to the UVs. And when we press this button, it cuts those edges, which means that if I were to take this UV and move it, let's see how am I to take this UV. Let's take this UV and select the shell. We'll be able to take the shell itself out, as you can see. Lovely. All right, let's do it. We can do the same for the others. We can say let's take this not this UV. Let's take this edge here and snip along this. Oh well, let's take these edges and snip along these edges. Take this UV and select the shell and take it out. Lovely, it's all separated. Now let's take the edges for this, and this. Let's cut it. Let's take the UV and select the shell and move it up. So now we have all these lovely different squares that represent the different parts of our cube here. So let's have this in the center. All right, so let's go to UV. Let's have this, select the shell and move it aside here. Select this UVs and move it to the center. All right, so right now we want to, let's have our cube line up properly. So what this means is that I want this square here to line up with this square in order. So this will be on top, which means that I want my UVs, I want these UVs out this way, and I want this UVs up here and up here. So I believe, no, let's not do that. Okay, so this is our UV. So you can see here, one thing we can do, right, if we want to combine all these to make one complete shell, if you want, is to take the two edges, to select the two edges where the two different shells link, and to sew them using the sew function. Sew the selected edges or UVs together. So once you do that, this entire area becomes one shell once more. And whatever you do up there will be reflected down there. So we can continue doing it for the rest of the squares. On the side here, we can take this. I want this to line up here, so we can rotate it this way. Let's rotate it so that it matches up with there, and have it line up this way. And this way. Again, with the edge, we sew the edges together, and as a result, we have one complete shell that corresponds to the different parts. It's getting quite nice that way. Although this part doesn't really match with this part. Yeah. It'd be something to think about how you connect these two parts together. In any case, we're concentrating on forming, we're concentrating on the top square for now, so that's all right. We can take the UVs here, and we can rotate. Once you select the shell, you can rotate. Oh, remember the shortcuts I mentioned previously? You can also have the shortcuts here, and here you can go to select shell, goes up here. You can move up here and move up here. Go to the edges, take the two, and you can sew it together. Now, I believe what I may have selected just now is toggle texture borders, which just means that you make the texture borders for each of the shells bold, so you can tell how many different shells you have. Right now we have 3 different shells, the bottom of which will be, when we select it, using just a simple hold right click, we can select that shell. Move it to the bottom here. And we can sew it. So we have almost complete, we have an almost complete shell of the lot. All right, in any case, let's see. And again, we can do the same for that, but I won't go through that. What else can we do? Okay, this let's go to something more recent. Something more recent you guys done. Let's go into deformers. All right, let's quickly. All right, okay. All right, before we do anything, we should add in some subdivisions of height so that this thing will deform. Maybe add in more subdivision of that way. All right. Okay, so for this, right, we have the many different deformers under animation. Create deformers. We have the bend deformer, which, if you remember carefully, is does this. Well, it apparently doesn't really do anything. Why is it not doing anything? There you are. So it does this, right? So with this bend deformer, we can do many things. So we can do a high bound. So you just get that, or you could do like a low bound, which gives you this. We can also change the position of the tool, which allows us to manipulate the type of the type of bend we're looking for. All right. We can also rotate it to twist the type of rotation we're looking for, this way. So this looks like a sword slicing to someone's face. You also got other deformers, such as the I believe bend is the most important deformer. However, you have other deformers like flare, sine. Sine is a nice one where it affects the cylinder in a way that it gives you a nice wave. But yeah, as I said, I believe the most important deformer everyone uses is bend deformer. All right, so I mean that's deformers in a nutshell. Another thing to consider when you're during animation, besides deforming and use a keyframing dose, is the fact that under the preference button here, we can change the playback speed, which I believe, like for example, if you remember Kazar's sort of like dilemmas when he was saying everything moves really fast, that's because you're playing every frame, which is I think like however many frames per second, and you have real time, which plays 24 frames a second, which is what we usually use. There's other options like half frame, half the speed, which is 12 frames, or twice the speed, which is 48 frames. But normally we do 24 frames. Other settings for animations that we use weighted tangents, clamped and stepped. We look at our settings, linear, centimeter, angular, degrees. These are just like working units. You have cameras. You get a lot of options here. Oh, another option that's really useful. I don't think I've mentioned it, or at least because we rarely had an option to use it in, is the fact that if we were to how you say that? Let's see. I don't know. Oh, right, of course. If you were to play, I think. All right, let's try this. Let's go there. And let's go here. So I just created a small animation, right? If I were to play this, right? So if I were to play this animation, you will see. Oh, where is it? Okay, here we are. So you will see that this screen will play, but the others won't play and only update their information. Now, this is quite annoying for animators, and if you are trying to animate in two screens, you like to scrub, as we call it, the timeline down here, and you like to see the effects of your animation in all screens at once rather than just one screen. All right? So the option here is that update view all. Now, if you do this, you have this. So all your screens will update simultaneously, which gives you this option that when you do this, and let's actually animate this so that we can see clearly. Let's just quickly do that. Don't believe there's anything. All right, so it goes there. So all our screens are actively updating, compared to just the active screen. If we have just that, then only one screen will update, the rest will pop into that position. So that's something useful to remember. If you have an issue, I want to see my animations all, just go click update view all on the playback time slider. Okay, so another thing when you're animating is this key. I prefer to use this key on because it allows me to create all these keyframes instantly without having to muck about pressing S all the time. Now, if I would press F here, again, F allows me to zoom in and to see clearly what I'm doing. Again, let's have that smooth, that smooth. Actually, this should be this, shouldn't it? Then we move this up. Okay, I don't know why it's not showing. Okay, there you go. Yeah, just middle mouse click that up there to just give a more smooth feel, and perhaps this way give a more even sort of like curve going. And again, here you know how to split, you know how to give weights, and you know that if you give a weighted tangent, you have a sort of what you call it, you free the tangent weights. You can sort of squeeze it out that way, so that it gets a bit. You get to basically adjust how you want to animate it ever so slightly. So you get this sort of like weird bounce animation sort of thing. Okay, let's see what else you can do. And of course, you guys know how to adjust the timing here. Say for example, I wanted this middle. Hold on. Let's have that, delete that. Let's have that, delete that. Let's say I wanted this middle two. I wanted these middle 2 frames here to be, instead of 2 frames, I wanted it 4 frames long. So I'll just select this, and in fact I'll select this whole lot here. If I wanted, say, the instructions would say have this 4 frames without affecting the end frames, I would say I would perhaps move this 1 frame back, move this 1 frame forward. That way you have the timing where this middle bit is now 4 frames, and the starting and ending keyframes don't move. So you have that option too. What else do we have? We have also, all right, so that's animation in a very brief nutshell. Let's quickly go to your rendering settings, all right? So let's create a light, a directional light. In your directional light, you have options in the attribute editor. Under shadows, you have both depth map shadows. If you click it on, you have all these available options to you. Or alternatively, you have use ray trace shadows, which is a whole different feel. Again, with all these necessary parameters you can play around with. That's shadows. Other things is intensity, illuminates and emit diffuse, emit specular. You have your object display, which is not important. Mental ray is probably your next important, but you don't really need to worry about that so much. But yeah, most important is shadows and any options here. Let's see. Remember to check pivot points in your objects, so you know how they behave if you rotate them. And finally, your render settings here. If you remember your render settings, if you were to use mental ray, which I hope you remember how to activate, I'll just go through it briefly. Mental ray can be activated through Windows, Settings Preference, Plugin Manager. Under Plugin Manager, you'll find Maya 2 MR. You need to click these two and have that selected. That way, under your render settings, you can have mental ray enabled. Remember that usually, unless the question asks for it, usually we switch enable default light under render options off. We have this, we can go up to HD 1080p. We can have the image format as whatever you want. You could do like a TIFF or PNG. Usually TIFF or PNGs are the norm. You can have the different renderable cameras, and you have your indirect lighting here, which is GI and FG here, global illumination and final gather. And once you're done, once you render out an object, say you have this object here, let's zoom in using F. Let's create point light, move it up here, press 6 to see, no, press 7 to see what the lighting will be like. Okay, that's fine. And then we can render using this. To be very brief, should be. Okay. Once you do that, you can save the image as, yeah, you don't need that. You can save the image under your image, under your images here. So you just save it there, and that'll be it, really. Okay, I believe that's most of the important stuff for your examination. It was a very brief half an hour. Is it half an hour? Yeah, half an hour wheeze through. But with this, you should have a general idea. So basically, just go through the entire list that you have, plus maybe just go through these lessons to give you a quick refresher of really important keynotes to remember, and you should be fine for the exam. So yeah, that's that.